Wokeness, in many ways, set us back.
There's an interesting
if
thing
I-
about the woke culture thing that a friend of mine who's a psychologist told me, that this is an interesting comparison, because I understand the need for the progress. I've always loved on your show when you talk about celebrating the progress. We don't take the time to do that, to celebrate it. But in the wokeness sense, there's things about when woke goes off the rails, it's when they lean towards being a cult themselves.
In this clip from the Club Random podcast, we're diving into a clip where Bill Maher absolutely schools Brad Paisley and dismantles the so-called wokeness cult with absolute pure logic. If you are someone who is tired of the endless virtue signaling, the performative outrage, and the constant walking on eggshells, this is a clip that you need to watch. Maher will not be holding back, and of course, neither will we. So without spoiling anything, let's just get into this clip where, of course, I'll be giving you my unfiltered take as we go through it.
And that is where
Right.
you got to repent, you got to do this.
And a religion.
Yeah, there's
John
sort of,
McWhorter, African American, I love him. He's a genius. He's on my show as much as I can get him. He's a professor, but he wrote a whole book about that, the religion of anti-racism.
Right.
You know, there's an original sin, you know, you're born with whiteness, and, you know, I mean, we went to such a ridiculous place with this. I felt like, look, we're always in a process of healing, but like Obama was a truly great moment. Did it solve everything? Of course not. But could we just, you know, if we just like stayed with what he was saying. He became a star in 2004 at the Democratic Convention when he made the big speech. No, it's somewhat fanciful, but it's hopeful. You know, he said, "We are not Black Americans and white Americans. We are not Latino states, and there's not red states and blue states. We are the United States." And like, yes, he was like, here I am, half black, half white. I'm representing where this country is going. We have to live together. There's no reason to hate each other. There's reason to hate what people in the past did, and some people in the present, yes. But
Right.
not all. And now I feel like there's this people walking on eggshells, and for races, which of course are continually intermarrying more. I mean, it's happening. Whether there are lots of segregated dorms on colleges, and you can try, but it's happening. People are still coming together, as they should.
As they should indeed. This is such a key point. We are more integrated than ever before, but somehow we're also more divided. How does that even make sense? Maher's basically calling out here the absurdity of walking on eggshells around race when in reality, people are coming together more than ever. Interracial marriages are on the rise, and yet we're still acting like we're stuck in the 1950s. I think it definitely is very important that we start living in the present and stop pretending we're in some dystopian past. Schools, workplaces, neighborhoods, they're more diverse than ever, but instead of celebrating that, we're being told to tiptoe around each other like we're handling fragile glass. It honestly feels like we're just being gaslit into believing we're still in the Jim Crow era. Another point that I'd also like to make is this hyper focus on race is creating division where it doesn't need to exist. When you're constantly told to see someone as other because of their skin color, how are we supposed to find common ground? It's only moving us backwards and not forward. I think it's important to stop the performative wokeness and start having real conversations, because at the end of the day, we're all just people trying to live our lives. So let's act like it. This is only one major point. There's a ton others, so let's go and get into them.
And I felt like we were at a better place in the sense that we used to be able to talk about it more, like your song, joke about it more. People become asshole buddies when they joke with each other. Now I feel like we're at this place where, oh no, that's funny and I think he'd laugh, but I better not.
right. And I think
Because if it goes wrong,
I definitely think that's the path forward for all of us, is finding the humor and the forgiveness, and that's got to happen. I mean, as I look at, like I've talked about, I said this to some friends of mine about, you know, when it comes to trans rights and people trying to become more accepted, they're missing the modern family moment. They're missing that thing
Right.
where, because I came from West Virginia. I did not know a single person who was out of the closet in West Virginia, but before I moved to Tennessee, not one. And
I don't think I did living in New Jersey either. And of course, I'm a little older than you, but you know, I mean, people keep to their tribes, and especially back in that day. I mean, to this day, I really don't know a trans person, and that's not because
Well, I do.
I'm not trying to avoid them. I just
Right.
feel like we obviously don't travel in the same circles. But I'd be perfectly open to being friends with anybody.
I've got a few, and the thing about that is that when I think back to when I moved to town in Tennessee and started this journey of being a music artist, here comes Ellen doing what she did for gay rights and people becoming like,
Right.
oh wow, this is she's funny and I really like her, and the next thing you know, here's Will and Grace. But then Modern Family, I had the most conservative friends of mine watch Modern Family, and their favorite two characters were Mitch and Cam, the Eric Stone Street, and it was the type of thing where they would tune in every week to see that couple, and that moment, the next thing you know, we all woke up one day, and it was everybody seemed for that, and it's no coincidence that art had taken us there as a society.
TV specifically.
TV, and I feel like
When TV shows people something,
Yeah.
it normalizes it for good and bad. It
Yeah.
normalized Donald Trump.
yeah.
But it also normalized, you're right, Will and Grace. You know, it's like, and this is interesting that, your friends would relate most to the gay characters, which tells me your friends are probably gay.
Great point to pause here because Bill gives another excellent point. TV has the power to normalize anything, whether it's Donald Trump or LGBTQ representation. Maher is right to bring up shows like Will and Grace and Modern Family. They didn't just entertain, they quite literally changed the way people thought. But because of the fact that TV can normalize things, that can go both good and bad. Like, how did we go from Modern Family to this hyper woke divisive nonsense? A great example of this is TV sort of has normalized Donald Trump. Before The Apprentice, Trump was just a loudmouth billionaire with a knack for bankruptcies. But that show turned him into a household name, a successful businessman, and eventually a president. It's wild to think about how much influence TV has over our perception of reality. And now that power is pushing this hyper woke agenda that's just as polarizing as Trump ever was. Instead of bringing people together, it's dividing us. Shows are so focused on checking diversity boxes that they forget to tell good stories. And when they do, it's often so heavy-handed that it feels like a lecture. I think the important question to ask is, what's next? Are we going to keep using TV to push divisive narratives, or are we going to get back to telling stories that unite us? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. There's two other big points that Maher's going to cover, and these are probably the most important.
I'll let them know. But it's like that. It's like they thought, oh man, I understand the things this couple is going through, And
Of course, because
Yeah.
and that's the overarching point of this whole discussion we're having is that, it's not impossible to get to the place,
Right.
even with our horrible, sorry racial history and our sorry history to women and to every fucking person. I get it, except the white men. It's not impossible to get to a place now where we recognize we actually have more in common.
For sure.
There was a time when we didn't, where white people and black people had so little in common because, of course, the oppression, the horrible oppression that was visited upon them. So you couldn't even, in the South, you couldn't look a white person in the eye walking down the street.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, you don't have anything in common with that person. Now, we're all in line together at Starbucks, and we're doing this, and we're doing that,
Yeah.
There are still problems? Yes, of course. Nothing will ever be perfected. But I keep saying, can we just live in the year we're living in? Can we not go by these zombie lies, which are lies that, something that's been debunked.
It comes back to
But
celebrating
you're still
how
pretending
far we've come.
is alive.
Yeah, right.
And let's not pretend that we're in 1958
Yeah.
or 78. Let's just live in the year we're living in, acknowledge that there's work to be done.
One of Maher's biggest points is the perfect closer. We need to stop living in the past and start living in the present. Yes, we have work to do, but let's not pretend we're still in 1958. We have made progress, and it's time to celebrate that instead of constantly tearing each other down. These zombie lies are everywhere. They're the recycled narrative that keep popping up no matter how many times they're debunked. Like the idea that America is just as racist as it was 60 years ago. Is racism still a problem? Absolutely. But are we living in the same country where segregation was legal? No. We've made huge strides, and pretending otherwise is not only dishonest, it's counterproductive. It's like saying, hey, we've climbed 90% of the mountain, but let's act like we're still at the bottom. Why? And it's also not just about race. These zombie lies infect every part of our culture. Take gender, for example. We're constantly told that women are oppressed in ways that just don't match reality. Are there still issues? Sure. But women are out-earning men in many fields, dominating higher education and breaking barriers in every industry. Yet we're still fed this narrative that they're helpless victims. It's insulting, and honestly, it undermines the real progress we've made. I think it's just extremely important to live in the year we're actually in and to acknowledge the progress we've made while still working to fix what's broken. But constantly revisiting debunked ideas and acting like nothing has changed, that's not progress, that's stagnation. At least that's what I think. As always, I'd love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below. Let me know if you agree with these points, agree with all the points I made with this clip, and if you agree with Bill or not. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.